Ooh, hello, 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 beautiful people, and welcome to Liberian Girl Unfiltered. I am your host, Stephanie Salamatu. Yes, it's called Saliamatu. The Liberian girl, the mother of two, entrepreneur, traveler, storyteller, proud Gen X, and yes, your favorite new podcaster from my lips to God's ears. Make sure you subscribe, you leave a review, you share the link with your network. I truly, truly appreciate you. Let me say, before I even start, I really just I want to thank everyone who has listened, who called, who text message, share feedback about the podcast. I truly appreciate every bit of support. This podcast is more than just something fun for me to do. It's also, it's a journey of healing, of self-discovery, of learning to become more comfortable with expressing myself and also sharing my thoughts out loud. Every lesson, every comment, every encouragement, it reminds me that these conversations matters and that it means more than you would ever know. So thank you for rocking with me, for growing with me, for giving me the confidence to keep showing up behind this microphone. I appreciate you. Whew. Okay, so now let's get into today's podcast. Today, I want to talk about my love, Liberia. Liberia is my birth country. I have an emotional attachment to that country. Love being a Liberian. Love Liberia. My family thinks that I have this love-hate relationship with my beloved country, Liberia. But, and my friends most of my friends can't even get enough of me telling them the little bit of history that I do know about Liberia. But in many ways, my family, they're right. I do have a love-hate relationship with Liberia. I love the complicated history of Liberia, and one way I can describe my feelings for Liberia is with this quote that I saw in a movie, The Lost City. And The Lost City was about Cuba. Yes, Cuba, Cuba. We have so much in common. So here, the quote in the movie goes, Cuba is like a rose. It has petals and it has thorns. So it depends on how you grab it. But in the end, it always grabs you. Don't you love it? Now replace Cuba with Liberia. Liberia is like a doggone rose. The rose got petals and then it got thorns. So depending on how you grab that rose will actually determine how it treats you. Isn't that deep? I'm sorry. Every time I watch that movie, when I, hear that quote, I just like, oh my God, it reminds me of Liberia. So I watched the 2005 movie, The Lost City. If you have time, check out The Lost City. I actually watched this movie about 10 plus years ago. And it came out in 2005, but, I saw it like a couple of years ago. And in so many ways, it reminded me of like the rose petals and thorns of Liberia. So the movie starred Andy Garcia, that sexy Cuban man. Oh, my Lord. Man, sexy. So Garcia, if you don't know who Garcia is, Andy Garcia has started in some of my favorite movies, like The Untouchables, Oceans 11, 12, and 13. And I hope if they're coming up with an Ocean 14, he better be in that one. And of course, everybody know The Godfather. He starred in The Godfather 3. Well, okay, so I love The Godfather, but 3 was probably my least favorite. But nevertheless, I love the series and I love his character in The Godfather 3. He's been like nominated for an Oscar, Golden Globe, Emmy, and even won a Grammy. Anyway, back to the movie because if you let me, I will probably go on and on about Andy Garcia because I think he's so hot. Anyway, so the lost, the lost city follows Fiovi, yeah, Fiovi. It's actually spelled fell off, but I think it's pronounced Fiovi. Yeah. For all the Latin people out there, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, please, I beg, let me know. But anyway, Figo, played by Garcia, is a Havana nightclub owner during the Cuba Revolution. As Cuba is torn apart by political upheaval, Liberia, Figo watches his family becomes deeply divided. One brother decides to join Castro's rebels, and another brother fights for democracy, and then his father advocates for like peace. And this movie is about loss, it's about betrayal, it's about love, and of course, about the rise of the new communist government. So Fico, in all of this, he's not choosing side. All he really wants to do is just like run his little nightclub and enjoy himself because he loves his home. He loves his country, but he loses his club during all of this chaos. He loses his club. He loses his freedom, and eventually his homeland. And he's forced to start all over in New York, but he holds on to that hope that one day he will return to Cuba, the Cuba that he loved. At its core, The Lost City is a story about family, sacrifice, resilience, and what it means to lose and rebuild everything. Liberia shares a similar story of the lost city with over like 200 years of history. Families that were stolen returned, others found freedom, they built, they loved, they fought, some were murdered. Others were displaced, some were stuck, and many returned to rebuild. Let me take you on the journey of a rose with petals and thorns named Liberia, not just across the ocean, but across time. We're going to a place where the roots of African American, Caribbean, and the indigenous African history runs deep into the red soil, where palm trees sway along the coastline that once saw tears of separation and later tears of return. We're going to Liberia. Whew, the land itself. Let the name breathe. I love my little country. So Liberia sits on the western coast of Africa, between Sierra Leone to the northwest and Guinea to the north, and Cote d'Ivoire to the east, or Ivory Coast. The Atlantic Ocean to the southwest. So we have like, I will tell you a thing about Liberians. They used to call the Ghanaians coastal people. I never understood why they will refer to the Ghanaians as coastal and the Liberians as, I don't know what, we weren't coastal. And we sit literally on the same side of the Atlantic Ocean. But anyway, Liberia is a country of breathtaking beauty, our tropical rainforests, the rivers that wind through green valleys. We have white sand beaches that stretch for miles. It is home to like chimpanzee, forest elephants, the pygmy hippo, and hundreds of bird species found nowhere else in the world. Some of my friends are probably laughing and saying, "What? Rivers that run through the valley? That your business? That your business?" That's how I see my beautiful country. We have rivers that runs through the valley. It sounds so, ooh, beautiful, but it does. We I'm sorry. I know my friends are listening and be like, "What's wrong with this girl? She can really make Liberia look like." It is breathtaking. I once took a plane ride in Liberia from the capital city to one of the counties, and when I tell you that was one of the most beautiful scene. It looked like, I mean, there was like thick trees, like green mushroom. That's what it looked like. And every now and then you would see like a body of water. You will see little towns or villages in between, mountains. I mean, it was so beautiful. That was the one and only time that I took that plane ride, by the way. Anywho, so I talk about pygmy hippos. Just so you know, let me give you a little bit of history, right? And this history, of course, as a Liberian, we know this, but I got to cite my sources where I got the information from, where it's documented. The Smithsonian Institution actually have this documented. They documented the very first pygmy hippo to arrive in the U.S. in 1927. It was a male hippo named Billy. They actually named the hippo William Johnson hippopotamus. Yeah, Billy for short. He was he was a gift to President Calvin Coolidge by the rubber magnate Harvey Firestone, and later resided in the Smithsonian Museum, the National Zoo, not the museum, the National Zoo in Washington. Years later, in 1941, a pygmy hippo named Skipper, I don't know who was coming up with these names, was also brought over from Liberia and was featured in Life magazine, turning the tiny hippo into like a national curiosity. Everybody wanted to know about pygmy hippos. And for many of you wondering why, this connection, why we have an American industrialist, Harvey Firestone, what he got to do with Liberia? Well, honey, let me tell you. Every story about Liberia is a rabbit hole. Okay. Every time we mention somebody's name, there's a story to that. Anytime we mention something, there's another story that kind of intertwines with it. So, why did Harvey Firestone give a hippo to the president? Why was he even in Liberia? Well, let me tell you. Old boy was securing a lease for 100 million acres of land in Liberia. Why? Because he was securing a private rubber supply for Firestone Tire and Firestone Rubber Company, which he managed to do in 1926 for 99 years. He signed a lease for 99 years, and of course, after the 99 years, the lease was renewed. Okay, so that's from 1926 for 99 years. This man signed a lease to be able to secure rubber from our rubber trees. We have a lot of rubber trees in Liberia. And yes, you guessed it, the natural rubber for Firestone tires comes primarily from Liberia. And I think, like, I don't know where else they source natural rubber, but I know majority of the natural rubber for Firestone, it comes from Liberia. We have a whole plantation, a whole city in Liberia called Firestone. That's another story for another day. Let me just warn you again that every story from Liberia will take you down some kind of rabbit hole. Yeah, we arose and we got rabbit holes. So back to our rose with the petals and the thorns. So let me describe my sweet Liberia. That's what Liberia is also known as. Sweet Liberia, Mama Liberia. The air smells of rain and earth and possibilities. Okay. Now again, some of my friends are probably laughing and and saying, diarrhea, rain, and earth. I beg you, yeah. That's a Liberian colloquial, meaning girl, please. Uh, but Liberia truly has like two seasons, rainy and dry. And when it rains, it pours, like literally. It could rain for days. And I'm talking like lightning and thundering, like it just rains. Like Monday through Friday, it could rain. And of course, when it's dry season, um, we welcome that sunshine, that vitamin, that sunshine vitamin called vitamin D for days. It is hot. So that's our two season, raining and dry season. Remember now, we have part of the rainforest in West Africa. Majority of it is located in Liberia. Okay, now let me brag on Liberia again for a second. Our soil in Liberia is so freaking fertile. The joke in Liberia that if you spit outside, something will grow. And honestly, it's not far from the truth. We can grow just about anything in Liberia. Do we? No. But again, that's another rabbit hole. But there's something else Liberia is blessed with. And I didn't really appreciate this until I actually moved back home to Liberia, and that's the mangroves. I know nothing but no doggone mangroves. Yes, the trees lining our coastal rivers that many of us, we used to drive past without even a second thought. It actually took a trip. I took a trip to the Gambia, and I was doing this tour of Kunta Kinte. That's another rabbit hole. Yeah, they were taking me on a tour of Kunta Kinte, only for me to realize just how incredible the mangroves are. They gave a little history about it, and of course, you're sitting there, you're like, oh my God, we have a lot of these in Liberia, and these aren't just trees hanging out by the water looking pretty. They are natural. They are nature's bodyguards, right? Scratch that. Not bodyguards. They are superheroes. They protect our coastline from erosion. They help shield communities from the rising sea levels. They support the wildlife, and we got lots of those. And of course, they keep our ecosystem healthy. Who knew that one of Liberia's greatest superheroes was going to be a tree standing ankle deep in muddy waters? Yeah, baby, we got them. We got them. We got them. So, Liberia, yes, my sweet Liberia, we got everything. Now, Liberia is a pretty small country in size. Liberia is the size of Tennessee. Some say it's the size of Ohio, but I think Tennessee would probably be the most accurate comparison, but it carries a history that's larger than any map can hold. You ready? Lean in. Let me tell you something about my sweet Liberia, Mama Liberia. So, Liberia was founded in 1822. This is where Liberia's history and America's history become deeply connected. For all my African American friends, are you ready? Because let me tell you, I can get so upset when, especially being in Richmond, Virginia, and when I talk to someone and I ask them, oh, when I tell them I'm from Liberia, and they're looking at me like, where's that? It's like, baby, you don't know? So let me tell you, founded in 1822, after centuries of slavery in the US, a big question was hanging in the air. What does freedom actually look like for Black people in America? Now, depending on who you ask that question, the answer would have probably been different, right? Many white Americans feared that the formerly enslaved people might one day rise up against them. Meanwhile, many free Black Americans were dealing with discrimination, limited opportunities, and a country that often refused to see them as equal. Some were basically saying, you know what? Maybe it's time for a fresh new start somewhere else. They were like, maybe we got to get the heck out of Dodge. So now enters the American Colonization Society, also known as the ACS. And this is just a recap of history. You can actually read a lot of this stuff. It's online. Information is free. The Smithsonian, the Library of Congress, all of our information, our history is there. A good place to also check out Liberia's history is the Harvard. Actually, I will put it in the I will put it in the description so you can check it out. It's the Harvard. It was a newspaper. They have an archive of letters that were written between the families who had gone to Liberia and the families who has stayed in America. So it's quite interesting to just see the life of the settlers, the free men and women who had moved to Liberia in the early 1800s. So anyway, back to the American Colonization Society. So this organization, were made out of course white people, black people, slave owners, influential Americans, and everybody in this group had a different reason for supporting the same idea. They wanted to send free black Americans to Africa, go back home, um, and again for different reasons. Um, So they raised money, they chartered ships, and in 1820, a group of 86 free black men, women, and children from states like Virginia, Georgia, South Carolina, and Maryland, they pack up their lives, they climb on that ship, and they were like, we out of here. Sail across the Atlantic Ocean. How brave. Can you imagine that journey? Leaving the home you've known for like all your life, crossing an ocean for weeks, headed to a continent many had never seen, but one that held the roots of their ancestors. And just like that, the first chapter of Liberia's story begins. See, we landed in what is now Sierra Leone. That was the first place we went. We landed in Sierra Leone, our neighboring country, right? Of course, it wasn't Sierra Leone at the time, but we landed in that area. The mosquitoes did not play any games with us. Ooh, cha. Mosquito, mosquito made half of the people sick. People were sick. People were, a couple of people died. So they decided, you know what? There was another land further down the pond. Maybe we need to head on down that way. Again, another rabbit hole for another day. I'm telling you, if you stick with this podcast, you will learn a lot about Liberia and the surrounding countries. So I know you have many questions. Save those questions. I promise you, if you stick with me throughout this journey of Liberian Girl Unfiltered, you will learn a lot and it will answer a lot of your questions. So anyway, so further down the pond, they landed on a small island, and that island they called Providence. Now let's talk about Providence Island. By definition, the word providence means the protective care and guidance of a higher power. Basically, God looking out for you. And listen, a whole bunch of pastors, deacons, church mothers, and Baptist folks were amongst the early settlers. They were on that ship. So when they arrived, they named the island Providence Island. They were essentially saying, God brought us here and watch over us on this journey. Amen. But before you start thinking they landed on empty land and planted a flag, let me stop you right there. They didn't. The local indigenous people, specifically the Gola people, by the way, I'm part Gola. The Gola people already had a name for the island, Dozo, which means land in the center of water. An island, right? Smart. And yes, there were people on the land, on the island, and also off the island. Plenty of people. Various groups have been living through the region long before the settlers arrived. In fact, many of the communities along the coast initially welcomed the newcomers. Again, another rabbit hole, and trust me, it's a rabbit hole we'll save for another episode because, whoo, there's a lot to unpack. Now, Liberia started as a settlement, but things got a little messy. Imagine trying to run your neighborhood, collect dues, make rules, while people next door keep saying to you, yeah, we're not listening to you. That's basically what the settlers were dealing with, right? And remember, not remember because you didn't know this. The British and the French traders were operating along the coast and often refused to recognize Liberia's authority to collect custom duties, whatever. Now, remember, the land that we know as Liberia was not known as Liberia. It was a land the British, the French, the Portuguese, they were another group. They used to call that entire coastline the Pepper Coast or the Meliguata coast, which is the Melguata pepper. So they used to trade, but they didn't recognize the people. So the settlers come, they settle, and meanwhile, America had helped establish the settlement, but they weren't interested in governing or protecting the settlement. Yeah, it was just like, okay, we're not ship these people because if we keep these people here, they probably gonna revolt against us. There's gonna be war, blah blah blah. So the settlers found themselves pretty much doing it themselves. They decided to declare independence. And to declare independence, by declaring independence, they could create their own laws, they could collect their own taxes, They could govern their own affairs. They could take place, in the world, recognized nations. Wasn't a lot of recognized countries in the early 1800s, but that's another one. But it was a bold move by a young nation deciding it was time to stand on its own 2 feet, and saying we belong at the table too. So fast forward in July of 1847, July 26th to be exact, 1847, Liberia declared independence in becoming Africa's first republic decades before most African nations gained their freedom. Its Declaration of Independence was modeled after what else? Liberia. Yeah, not Liberia. I'm sorry, America. Go figure. Shocking, right? So the country now, because now we're a republic, we will model after America. Yeah. So the capital city, Monrovia, was named in honor of President James Monroe. Our flag is identical to that of the U.S. flag. Same colors, same stripes, same design. The only difference is we have one star, and that one star symbolizes the lone country on the continent. Our Constitution is similar to the U.S. However, you ready for this? Our Constitution has a clause in it, and it says only people of African descent can be citizens. Don't be cute. You know exactly why they wrote that in. Yeah. All of these similarities are a testament to the complicated love and longing the founders carried. So yeah, y'all don't be cute. Y'all know why. The people and their faith. Now let's talk about what the settlers packed when they came to Liberia. Not just their clothes, not the cookware. They brought their faith. And I mean like literally. Churches went up before almost anything else. Before proper roads, before government buildings, the church came first. That could be another story for present day Liberia church. And yeah, anyway, rabbit hole. And not just any church they built Providence Baptist Church. Providence Baptist Church, which was founded in 1821, originally out of Richmond, Virginia. Didn't I tell you Richmond was something? Child. Richmond, Virginia. It became the oldest church in Liberia. So they opened Providence Baptist Church. They had a Providence Baptist Church in Richmond, and they opened the Providence Baptist Church once they landed in Liberia. And Providence Baptist Church is the oldest church in Liberia and is the second oldest Baptist church on the entire continent. Oh, yeah. Our Declaration of Independence, guess where it was signed? Right there in that church. No big deal. Now, this is where it kind of gets personal for me. And y'all know I love when history gets personal. Yeah, so my grandfather, Reverend Samuel Stupperfield Sr., that's my mama's daddy. He was one of the pastors who years later, yeah, I'm not that old now. It wasn't 1821. Years later, he was one of the pastor who helped commission for a new church building. So if you Google like Providence Baptist Church, Monrovia, Liberia, you will see a smaller church in the back and you'll see a bigger church in the front. The older church still stands. It's a historical landmark. And of course, the new church, which is of course much larger in the front. And that was commissioned in the mid to late 70s. But tragically, he never got to see it completed. He passed away in a car accident before the doors were open. But this is the church as a child that I grew up in. I mean, like I grew up in Providence Baptist Church. All my family, all my cousins, my mama's side, we were members of Providence Baptist Church. We speak so highly of it. And if you look at like the people who were part of this group that came in the 1800s. You'll see the Stubblefield name on it. If you look throughout history, they have like plaques on the wall. You will see like the Stubblefield name. You'll also see like my grandmother's name on it. So it's like from 1800s all the way to present. We sort of kind of keep in touch with Providence Baptist Church, right? So yeah, this is a landmark not only for Liberia, but I think it's a landmark for Black America. All right, love it. So back to oh, let me tell you a funny story. Sidebar. So when I moved to Liberia, I called one of my cousins and I was like, you know what? We're in Liberia. We we don't go to our grandfather's church because after all now, that's our grandfather's church. We clean the church. We own the church. That's our grandfather's church. As if our money to actually build the church. Anyways, so I'm like, we need to go to church. Our grandfather is probably turning in his grave. We need to go to church. We need to go to church. So one Sunday morning, I spent the weekend with her and she was like, okay, let's go to church on Sunday. And keep in mind, we didn't think about it. It was actually the first Sunday of the year. Mm. If y'all grew up in a church, y'all know about first Sundays. We didn't even think about first Sunday. All we knew was going to church. So we decided we'll go to church. After church, we'll get something to eat, right? So yeah, go to church. Thinking it would probably be an hour and a half. Baby, we walk into church, of course, Miss Frisky thing here. I'm like, oh, we need to sit in the front. Because, I remember as a child, we used to sit in the front. It's like, let's sit in the front. It's our grandfather's church, man. We go sit, I think, 3 rows behind. Sitting in the church, people singing, the people talking, the people singing, the people talking. I think it was 2 hours later. Of course, my stomach is growling. I'm like, what the heck? They haven't even preached yet. Then I see them trying to do take offering. What? 2 hours later, they're trying to take offering. So they come to our row, and I turn around to look in the back. The church is packed. It's a huge church. It's packed. I'm like, oh my God, these people got to go through all of these people before they even start preaching? Let me tell you. God forgive me. I pray for forgiveness. I told my cousin, I said, I'm getting out of here. She's like, oh, we can leave. I said, I am leaving. I'm leaving out of here. I'm going. I need to eat. The man is up on the thing singing. I don't know what he's singing, but his voice is just like, when you're hungry, everything pisses you off. So I'm like, no. I got to get out of here. So we get up, starting to leave, and a family friend. Liberia is a very small country. Everybody pretty much know each other. And the person who called us out was like, where are y'all going? This is a guy whose family's been friends with our family for years, right? He's like, where y'all going? And I remember looking to him. I said, I'm going to the restroom. Child, I got out of that church. I was like, if I ever go back, it ain't going to be no first Sundays. But anyways, my little funny story about Providence Baptist Church when I moved back to Liberia trying to be Miss Thing. So, yeah, so today, Providence Baptist Church still stands. And you can, it stands in Monrovia as a historical landmark. And, our Declaration of Independence was signed there. Church in Liberia from the 1800s was always a big deal. We have the Episcopal Church, we have Methodist churches, and of course we have Baptist Church, all run deep roots in Liberia. They carry, the hearts of the first settlers. Love them all, but the Baptist Church, baby, I love it. I just need to make sure when I'm going to church, I'm not going the first Sunday. I'm sorry, I can't. I can't be hungry and sitting in the church. Go sit on this thing. So, yeah, and even today, when Liberians worship, they're standing in a long line of believers who cross water and still lifted their hands to the same God. And now let's clear something up because the name says it all: Liberia, land of the free, and it truly meant that because people ran to this place from everywhere. One word spread to the Caribbean that something new and free was being built on the African continent, and people move. And that brings me to my grandmother's on my daddy's side, Jerusha Blackett, my love, who came, her family came all the way from Barbados. She was born in Liberia, but her family came from Barbados. Now that's a whole another. I'm telling you, we got rabbit holes for another episode, baby. Barbados and Liberia. But if you want to get a head start, look up the Aura documentary by Dr. Shireen Goodrich Smith. It's called The Children of Lemongrass Street. It traces the fascinating, less known story of the people from Barbados who settled in Liberia in the early 20th century, their history, their culture, their legacy. And my grandmother, Jerusha, she was actually interviewed in this documentary, and this was shortly before she passed. It is a treasure. The Children of Lemongrass Streets. Oh, and ever since I learned about this Barbados connection, I have been convinced that somehow I'm related to, a certain singer from Barbados. You know her, Riri, cousin Riri. Don't laugh, don't laugh. I'm still researching, but I don't care what anybody say. I think I'm related to her. Disclaimer, that woman don't know me. But here, now here what makes Liberia truly extraordinary. It has never been just one story. Alongside the Americo Liberians, the settlers that came over from America, from the Caribbean, there were, there is, I shouldn't say there were, because they exist today, 16 indigenous ethnic groups, each with their own languages and their own traditions and their own arts. Now, you remember I said there's always a rabbit hole. You got the settlers that came, they met people there. And even though we know that the indigenous group of people who were there when the settlers arrived, they also came from different places. But nevertheless, they were there. This was truly the land of the free before it was even known as Liberia, the land of the free. So I'm going to say the 16 tribes that are in Liberia. I'm going to start with the Pele. The Pele people. The Pele people are the largest group of people in Liberia. Like, really. They really should be in control. Another rabbit hole. But the Pele people, largest group in Liberia. In the 70s, President Talbert wanted to make the Pele language the second official language of Liberia. English being the first. We speak English, that our first language. But each of these 16 tribes have their languages. So because the Pele was the largest group, he actually wanted to make it a second official language of the country. But of course, he got shot. That got shot down because what? He was murdered before this could ever happen. The thorn of Liberia. We will talk about President Talbert in another episode further down the line. And then you have the Bassa people. The Bassa people. Oh, by the way, my grandmother, even though her family came from Barbados, they spoke Pele. My grandmother spoke Pele. And even now, my grandmother's cousin who they grew up like sister, cousin Talita, that's her name, she speaks Pele. Yeah, so anyway. So the second group of people were the Bassa people. I'm talking about but the people like the in the Bassa. Second group is the Bassa people. Bassa people are the second largest group, and they primarily live along the coastline. It's so funny, a friend of mine posted an article about the Bassa people and the tribe that is the same tribe that exists in Nigeria. I didn't even know we had like the Bassa group in Nigeria, but again, the more you read about these different tribes, you understand how they migrated from different places. So the Bassa tribe in Liberia, they're the second largest group. They live along the coastline of Liberia. People joke that they saw Liberia for smoked fish. Actually, that rabbit hole, I'm never going down there. Okay, I ain't even going down that rabbit hole because one, I got plenty of people in my family that are Bassa people. So love the Bassa people. We'll talk about their food. I think they have they're the one that do the dumba and the fufu. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. The other tribe we have, the third tribe, we have the Gribble people. And just like the settlers, they like territory business, they like land business. No, the doggone settlers, when they came down, the biggest thing, they like land business. So we have the Gribble people. They're further down, closer to Cote d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast. And we will talk about the one of the counties that the settlers actually lived in, and there's a famous person, Tutman, yeah, yeah, from that specific county. And the joke was the settlers wanted to form their own country. It was actually a country by itself. It's called Maryland. That's one of our counties called Maryland. You guessed it. And the Tutmans were from Maryland. And they wanted their own country until the Gribble people started giving them a hard time. They were like, can't do this. We need to find our brothers and sisters further up. It's a joke. I'm sure there's more to that story. But anywho, the Gribble people, um, and they can cook. Every Gribble person I tasted at Liberian food been good. Then we have, excuse me, the Gio people. Gio people, they're known to be farmers. I don't know a lot about many of these tribes, so some of the things that I do know will be very short. And after the Gio, we have the Mano people. Mano people, they're known for the love of family and kinship. They like tribe business. They let the people when Mano man find another Mano man, they love family business. So anyway, the Mano people, and then we have one of my favorite group of people, the Crew people. And the reason why I love the Crew people because I believe in my soul I have Crew blood in me. They are very feisty. Very, very feisty group of people. The Crew people, traditionally, they're another people that live along the coastline, seafarers. They like book. They're very smart people, love book business. But they feisty, in Liberia said they frisky, they feisty, they let her fight. And the crew people have, I mean, the history. I'm telling you, African Americans, if you want to learn about African history, the crew people, these are the people who used to fight when they try to come and steal Africans off the shoreline. These people will fight. I have a friend who, told me a story about, he will always tell me stories about the Crew people back in the 1800s. Even the settlers, they were like, "We ain't paying you no taxes. Who are you? You just landing here and you won't be asking for taxes." So Crew people are one of the first people who are like, nah, not today, son. But anyways, the Crew people were also a group of people who end up kind of integrating with the settlers. So we have a lot of mixed Crew, American Liberian mixed blood there. Then we have the Loma people. The Loma people, they're further up, they're closer to Guinea. And the Loma people, they are deeply traditional folks who, they value wisdom and community respect. Much respect to them. Then we have the Kisi people, not far from the Loma people, but the Kisi people, well educated as well. And many of them, pursue careers in like law, medicine, government. Our current president, President Joseph Boyka, is actually a Kisi man. So, yeah, the Kisi. And then the Gola. Gola. Uh, that's, yeah. So I'm part Gola, yes. My mother's biological mother was a Gola woman. So I claim it. So Gola are the cultural custodians. Y'all ain't let my history that your business, yo balance. Because they are heavily tied to land business, they, their traditional social values, they have this male and female secret society called the Pora and the Sunday. So the Pora is for the male, the Sunday is for the female. Another rabbit hole for another day. I don't really understand it, but we used to be afraid of it. People start talking about it like, oh Lord, they're about to grab somebody's child and take them way in the village and do stuff with them. Not bad stuff. Yeah. Almost like a fraternity or a sorority, I guess. That's the best way to explain it, right? But they are highly respected. They're beautiful people. They're disciplined. They love social order. I'm a bit biased, so I'm gonna make the Gola people look like, yeah. Now, sidebar, I talk about the Gola and the Kisi people. The Gola and the Kisi people are closely connected to the Gula and the Kichi people of South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. I told you we had a rich history. If you don't know, you need to go and look up the Gula and Kichi people. I remember when I first met someone from the that group, they reminded me of Liberians. You will find a lot of the Gola and Kisi people in Liberia and Sierra Leone. Same group of people who are connected to the Gula and the Kichi people. I met a couple when I was in South Carolina. So, yeah, just a sidebar. Then we have the Vi people. The Vi people, this is amazing. They're known for developing their own unique written alphabets, the Vi strip. The way you gotta go read about it because I know plenty of thing about it, but I just know the people that created their own alphabets. So that's pretty cool. It's cool stuff. Yeah, but they're also known for the V ring, the V gold ring. It's another thing you should Google. Beautiful V ring. It was so popular when I was growing up. I think it's still popular now. We have a different group of people. After the war. But growing up, the V ring was a thing. So I don't know if this new generation actually knows about it or value it like when I was growing up, like my mother's or my grandmother's before generation. So that's the five people. And they're known for cassava leaf. If you're a five person, you can't cook cassava leaf. Bah, yeah, you're not five. So yeah, cassava leaf is good. So then, cassava leaf, by the way, is the leaves from the yucca. The scientific name, I guess, is called yucca. Anyway, we call it cassava, and the leaves from it is delicious. Then we have the Kron people. Kron people, I don't know a lot about them. I just know they're skilled. They're hunters, they're farmers, they're fishermen. Then we have, I know a lot of people have heard this name, Mandinga. Mandingo people, they're known for trade and historically, influential in the Islamic culture. My middle name is a Mandingo name, Saliamatu. Yeah, and that was because where my grandmother lived. So my mother's stepmother actually raised her. She was part Mandingo and part American Liberians. And I have to make a correction because my aunt listened to the podcast that I was talking about my name, and she called me and she was like, "My mom didn't give you that name. I give you the name." I said, "My sister, relax. Okay, I will make the correction." So it was my auntie Yimpu, my mom's sister, who actually gave me the name Saliamatu, and I was named after a young girl whose name was Salamatu, and she lived in the community, and they just thought the name was so beautiful. Saliamatu. It's my dingo name. Yeah. So now, after my dingo people, we have the Bandi. The Bandi people, don't know a lot about them, but they're economically savvy. They let money business. That that the only way I will put it. I have a cousin who is from this tribe. I know when she hears, she will be like, "Oh, that it? Yes, they let money business. Cha." And then, of course, we have the Mendi. The Mendi rich history of oral storytelling. They're very powerful. They have a very powerful community-based institution. They're also into the Pora and the Sandy secret societies. You remember I told you about that sorority, fraternity, blah blah blah. And the leads, they have this reputation of being proud, highly disciplined, and they have a very structured society. Yeah, that amending people. Then we have the Bele. Yeah, this one I know absolutely nothing about this tribe. Absolutely. I don't even know if I met anybody from the Belly tribe. I haven't, yeah, but they exist. And then, of course, 16th tribe, we have the Day tribe. Culturally, they were perceived as reserved. They were proud. They were peaceful people. They also like value traditional authority, kinship, type of thing. So now the Gola, Kizi, and Day groups are the earliest documented groups in Liberia, or what was known as the Green Coast, or the Pepper Coast, or the Melguada Coast. These three tribes, Gola, Kisi, and Day. And it makes so much sense because you will find a lot of our history with the Gola, Kisi, and Day also in neighboring Sierra Leone. Yeah. So these are the people whose civilization predates the American settlers by centuries. Liberia is not a footnote. It is a living, vibrant culture, and we're just getting started. So I hope you can join me next. I'm going to stop right here because I know that was a lot for you to take. I know it. I know it. I know it. This is a lot for you to take. And trust me, there's more to come. Me just kind of talking about our beautiful history. When I come, on the next episode, we'll get into the settlers, why they're called American Liberians, or why they even refer to as the Congo. We will talk about some of the rows. We'll get specifically into the rows, the petals, and we will talk about the thorns. And I'm telling you, this is the place that I need to stop because when we start talking about the thorns, sometimes I can get mad. Yeah, I mean, I can get mad, and sometimes, I'm like, oh my God, sometimes complication is the most beautiful thing. So, just like that, I'm wrapping up another episode of Liberian Girl Unfiltered. If this conversation spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode of Liberian Girls Unfiltered. And please, please, please leave a review, drop a comment, send me a message. Let me know what conversations you want me to talk about next. Just be nice, okay? Don't come over here being rude. I don't like rudeness. I'm a Gola woman. Yeah, I'm a Gola. I'm a American Liberian Gola American woman. Yeah, everything is that. And we're building a good vibe community over here. So please do share the podcast with your friends, your sisters, your mamas, your brothers, your uncles, your cousins, your aunties, everybody. I can wait. I honestly, I cannot wait for the next episode of Liberian Girl Unfiltered. Until next time, show up fully, speak boldly, love deeply, and live intentionally.